Dialogue appears to be the only option between the federal government and the Niger Delta Avengers, but the army says that they may be forced to take action if it fails. This is according to the Chief of Army Staff, who was represented by the General Officer commanding 82 Division, Major General Ibrahim Atahiru, at the commissioning in Port Harcourt, the River State capital.
The government is still committed to dialogue, whereby this cannot go on. Then there could be resort to other means. But the non-kinetic means has always been the source first, before government can recourse to the kinetic means. So there is the need for the Niger Delta Avengers to see reason and dialogue with government. Each time the army goes out to work, it works in support of the civil authority, and it will continue to do that. If there is a need for the military to support the civil authority based on needs from the police, it will continue to do just that.
Gunmen suspected to be militants have invaded Igondo community in Lagos State. Residents say that the gunmen were alleged to have come in through the riverine area. Speaking with Channels Television, the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State, Mr. Fatai Owosheni, gave an assurance that calm has returned to the area and security has been beefed up.
When they came out, they were shooting sporadically. The police in the area quickly mobilized, and they went to that area where the militants engaged the policemen in gun battle. And of course, God being on our side, were successfully repelled, which made them to retreat back to the creek with some bullet wounds that they sustained. However, 6 of our men also sustained minor injuries. I went to reassure them of their safety in partnership with them. In partnership with sister agencies, we will sustain our presence in the area.
The Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency has predicted flash floods in Lagos, Ibadan, Port Harcourt, Sokoto, Kaduna, Maiduguri, Makurdi and Yola. At the unveiling of the 2016 Annual Flood Outlook, the Director General of the agency, Dr. Moses Beckley, wants state governments to put in place artificial reservoirs to check the flow of the flood waters. He now joins me on the news at 10 from our Abuja studios to have an in-depth look at the warning. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming at this time. What is the reason that you have seen to give this high alert of flooding coming in to experience in the coming days?
Yeah, thank you very much. You realize that the rains are here already, and before now we have looked at the factors which could really lead to flooding in the country. We look at the seasonal rainfall prediction by NIMET, and also other factors like the geology, the topography, the geomorphology of the environment, as well as the reliefs all over the country, and vegetation as well, and as well using 2 models, which is the stream flow model and the SWAT, which is the soil and water tool assessment tool. By the time we're done with that, we came up with these flood scenarios for the country. As a matter of fact, these have been categorized into 3, the high flood risk areas or local government areas, and the moderate flood high risk areas, and the low flood risk areas. We look at the highly probable flood risk areas in the country based on the hydrological areas. We have 8 of them across the nation, and So we came out with this result at the annual flood outlook just yesterday. However, this is not to scare, but the fact is this, that water is life, and one major source of water is the rainwater. And when the rain comes, like a visitor, we are expected to accommodate and make provision for them and respect its flows. Because it's not going to rain throughout the whole year. Time will come when the rain will cease, so it's expected that we should manage this water now by, of course, creating artificial lakes or reservoirs, very large ones. And I'm recommending that each local government area should have at least one large dams or artificial lake. Of course, if you recall, the Jabi Lake is one very good example, because if each local government area should have that, it will help in recharging the groundwater aquifer system.
Permit me to just to come in here.
In maybe promoting fishery, as well as in water supply. If
if you would, please just permit me to come in here. You mentioned that state governments should be able to provide artificial reservoirs to check the flows when they come. Are there other measures that they can adopt? Because we know that the governments are actually faced with a cash crunch at the moment. Are there anything else they can do to try to protect the citizens?
Yeah. Yes, well, quite frankly, I think that is relatively cheaper when you think of constructing a dam that would need turbines. Of course, at individual levels, people could have, if you like, underground reserve, just so that they can help reserve this water and help the flow of the water. Because this water must find its way. They must flow down. And more importantly, people should, of course, respect the water courses, yes. And if this water is not reserved now, if it is not harnessed, if it is not stored, in large quantities, as much as we can, then of course, when the time of deficit comes, it will really tell.
Director General?
So I think we have a lot of responsibility here at different levels, the federal, the state, the local government. Now, of course, you mentioned the economic crunch. Yes, and that's why we are saying that to excavate a very large area that has been designated or identified for such large reservoirs will really go a long way. And that is it.
Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services, Dr. Moses Beckley, I want to thank you so much indeed for sharing your time and your thoughts on this very important flooding expectations in the country. Many thanks indeed. You're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television. Time now to move on to business news with Melinda Akinlami.
You first. First Bank.
Welcome to Business News. Deposit money banks in the country remain strong despite the current economic challenges, and that's according to the CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele. It is part of issues discussed during the MPC meeting today. This comment supports reports by EcoBank Research Group, Exotic Partners and the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation.
The state of the Nigerian banking system remains strong. Naturally, when economies face global shocks like the entire world economy is facing today, financial institutions will have their own share of that scratch. No doubt there has been weakening in terms of capital adequacy. There has been weakening in liquidity, and there has been indeed weakening even in the NPL, but not to the extent that it creates any panic or worry to anybody, any stakeholder in the Nigerian banking industry.
The equities market is already reacting to the decision of the MPC. It's looking good today as investors move capital to safety in the fixed income market. Bisi Adebayo has those numbers.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. In what could be described as a reaction to the CBN's hike in monetary policy rates, Nigeria's stock market rose significantly by 1.14% after 6 bearish sessions. The sentiment also drove 24 equities into price recovery, with Owando, ETI and Access Bank in the top 3 category. On the other hand, airline services, Seplat and 7up were the top 3 losers for the session. The day's transactions yielded a turnover of 286.6 million shares worth 2.33 billion naira in 4,313 deals, while financial giants UBA, Access Bank and Zenith Bank pulled the bulk of the turnover. That ends the stock market report. I am Bisi Adebayo.
Thank you so much, Bisi. A lot of bouncing back today in the market. Brent crude reverses losses after falling several times. The global benchmark Brent rose by 4 cents to $44.76 a barrel, but it's not all home and dry, as the intraday fell to $44.14, and that's the lowest since May the 10th. Record crude output from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, a surplus of refined products, and signs of more drilling activities in the United States have added to concerns about oversupply. For Tuesday's global figures, major world markets finish off in mixed shades, but for European stocks, it's a green day. And that's business news. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Melinda Akinwami.
You first. First Bank.
In line with the federal government's policy of ensuring security across the Federation, the National Broadcasting Commission wants broadcast media practitioners to up their programming content. At a summit on broadcast content development and national security in Lagos, the Director General of the NBC says that broadcasters must put the best interests of the country first at all times.
Content that we purvey in our broadcast media should take into cognizance the demography of our country and what the demography is exposed to. Young people are very impressionistic in their minds. What you purvey will determine the way they look at the world. And we live in a world that is borderless in terms of media content. So much comes from outside the country. I mean, I'll give you an example. A few years ago, there was a research that was done in Ikene, the hometown of the late Chief Obafemi Awolowo. And they discovered that the young people in the secondary school really do not know Obafemi Awolowo, but they know Obafemi Martins, the football player. What tells you two things. We have a very young population of people. There's a disconnect between them and our history. The average age of Africans today is 20 years. The average age of the leadership of Africa is 65 years. So there's a tremendous disconnect. And for us in broadcasting, we need to try to make a connection between our different peoples so that people can understand that we have a country that has challenges, but these challenges can collectively, when we work together.
Yeah. Well, still ahead on the news at 10, Chelsea midfielder Mikel Obi leads Team Nigeria to the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. That's on Sports News. Stay with us.